Good afternoon, everyone. Come on, let's try that again. I know it's 5 o'clock and we're keeping you from a drink, but good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
We'll take it. A little bit of energy. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for sticking out the rest of the afternoon with us and for being here. My name is Kerem. I'm a partner at Penrose Partners. Just quick introduction on myself. I do work in the private sector as an advisor, investors, lots of different businesses, but I'm also the digital finance advisor to the government of Bermuda, which has historically been a very progressive nation for enabling digital asset adoption, digital asset regulation, and really looking to embrace the decentralized communities around the world and be a government that supports the movements that you're all working on today. And so with that, I'm hoping to bring a bit of a tether to the traditional governments as well as the traditional businesses in the world, but really here to learn from the esteemed panelists here. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves as we go along, and I do want all of you to, when you introduce yourself, maybe give us just like a quick genesis story of why you were, to the title here, building a cloud nation, right? What inspired you? What put you on this path? And why does it really become an important part of your career and your life? So I'll start with you here, Quinn.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Quinn. I'm from Vietnam. And what we're trying to do from Vietnam is we really focus on Web3 ecosystem. So this a bit about Vietnam. We have 900,000 builders and also 400,000 builders in Vietnam. So when we do a lot of focus on Web3 ecosystem, we also ask the question how we can bring all the builders, founders, and also crypto leaders, which align with the core values, also have the same vision about the decentralized future, and also how we can together also make it more mass adoption, and at the end of the day still need to bring the impact to the real world. So that's why we also doing focus on education. We also do Web3 Village, which is kind of pop-up city. Everyone let's just stay together for 1 month, and also incubate the project, focus on real world showcase. And also we do Eat Vietnam, we do education. We kind of the bridge between Web3 people and also the government, the institution, and also the non-crypto people, and bring into the impact to the region.
Yeah, it's amazing. And being able to navigate all those stakeholders, truly a testament to what you've built with Web3 Village. So really congrats. Timour, can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on and any recent updates? I know you just flew in from Chiang Mai, where you guys are doing some amazing things at Edge City. So love to hear more.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'm Timour. I'm one of the founders of Edge City. We create these pop-up cities or pop-up villages. Juan was just talking about a very similar concept. And we essentially gather up to 1,000 people to live together for a month. And it's just an incredible environment to experiment with new ways of living, new technologies, actual IRL applications of the kinds of stuff that we're building in crypto, but also in other frontier fields like AI, biotech, longevity, etc. We've been doing this for about a year now. It actually all started with an event called Zuzalu, which happened in Montenegro about 18 months ago. We were intimately involved there, and from there spawned essentially this entire movement. Why am I building a cloud nation? I actually didn't know this term until starting to think about this panel, but I'm really excited about these things because, and I think we'll get into some of this, but I feel like these kinds of internet-based or network-based communities will start to become much more important aspects of people's lives as the traditional institutions that have governed our lives start to slowly become less relevant from an identity perspective and the way that we just live. So yeah, that's why I'm doing the work that I'm doing. And we just finished a pop-up city yesterday. It was in Chiang Mai. We had just about 1,000 people come for the month, and yeah, it was incredible. These folks were there, so yeah, that's it.
Congratulations. Juan, I know you gave the keynote right now, so I think everyone knows a little bit about what you're working on, but did you talk, I missed a bit of it, I was backstage, but maybe a bit of your genesis story. Why is this important to you?
Yeah, so maybe I'll describe two things here. The first is the big first call came from Balaji talking about network states and the fact that today you can't really innovate at a country scale. You cannot create new countries and new nations. In prior centuries, that was the biggest valve to be able to try new things, new ways of organizing people, new ways of creating cities, new ways of relating, new ways of stewarding innovation, and so on. And today, many countries have greatly rate-limited many sectors of innovation. And so it looks like we need a way of experimenting with new nation states and new countries. And today, it's extremely difficult to find a plot of land that hasn't already been claimed. You basically have to wait for a volcano to erupt in the middle of the ocean, which is quite difficult, and then hope that no big nation state try to take it from you, which again, maybe even harder. And instead, if you then forgo land and start focusing on the core thing that a nation means, which is the people, the organizations, the institutions, you don't actually need a land to create a country or a nation. And so instead, you can start with the network and build a state out of that. Take people that agree, that think likewise about how to organize people, and create a new structure for organization. So that was kind of like the rallying call. It was part of Suci, and that was a phenomenal attempt at bringing together a range of people and living together for a while. And from there, I was inspired to use this as a tool to build crecimiento and to, in that case, not create a new network state, but instead support the upgrading of an existing nation that has a massive expat community that is deeply frustrated with the conditions of the local economy, and instead seize the opportunity available today to upgrade the financial infrastructure using a crypto-powered infrastructure. The opportunity there is to create the economic conditions that give rise to a tremendously prosperous country through the use of an economic zone and on-chain financial primitives to bootstrap a whole economy. And if that can be successful, it can serve as a model for the rest of the world on how we can innovate somewhere in between a full, just digital network state and whole normal national upgrading. Instead, we can be somewhere in the middle to use the best benefits of the digital world and crypto as a whole, and a tried and true, proven way of embedding different jurisdictions in current states, which is the opportunity zone or economic zone structure.
Amazing. I can appreciate that greatly. And, one perspective to kind of bounce off you here. So, with advising a government of Bermuda, a very small state, a British overseas territory, actually, operates in their private sector and their community in a dollar-based economy with their Bermuda dollar, right? It's a one-to-one peg to the US dollar, but managed in the private banking sector. And so that, I believe, is a sandbox as well, right? Similar to the sandbox that, not to speak to these two jurisdictions as sandboxes, but they are a demonstration of what is possible, especially when you're on the innovative side of regulation in legislation and policy. And, I talked to Quinn about this earlier. I was like, well, you're advocating for your entire community. You're seen as a leader. Do you see yourself as a politician, possibly, in the role that you see? But maybe give me that kind of perspective of the parallels that maybe the citizen expects to the traditional government or the traditional world, and how maybe there's a new paradigm that's creating where you may not need a politician, right? It may be a pure democracy in that your voice and your vote matters, that you don't need a delegate. But maybe, Quinn, you can give me that perspective. Maybe, President Quinn doesn't ring a bell, but what are your thoughts?
So I just originally start everything, to build the community, build the ecosystem in the region. So I don't see myself as a politician. That's the first thing. More like activist, more like, kind of just trying to create some impact. From the beginning, I even don't know how it's going to be, to be honest. But then I just the more I understand the vision, also the demand, how we can support the builder, the founder, the leaders in the ecosystem, we just know that, actually, all of us also don't see hey, we need more leaders or we need more politicians, but how we all can contribute into it in a different way, decentralized way, but we can align in terms of impact that we want to create in the future, and also impact and apply now, right now in the real world, in our country, and make the country also even better. And then even that, we also can apply into other countries, not only in Vietnam, but also we can support other countries in the region. And that's how we see it, like more like that way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And Timour, the theme that we kind of came up with here, the state of states, right? Where are we in the traditional states? Where are we in the cloud states, right? And we talked about the parallels, right? So that governance, that vote, where do you see, Timour, the divide or maybe the misconceptions of what people should be expecting of a quote-unquote cloud nation?
Yeah, for sure. So I think we're very, very early in this movement, but there's a lot of exciting stuff that's starting to happen. One, I think when people think about this conceptually, they make maybe not a mistake, but the obvious leap to make is, okay, we have nation states, and now we're going to have network states. What are the one-to-one mappings of all the things that nation states do that now these network states need to do? And I think that's not the right way to think about it for a couple of reasons. One is that we're early, but two is that these things will have emergent properties that we can't really necessarily map one-to-one. For example, network states, I don't think for quite some time we'll have to worry about like maintaining geographical sovereignty or like have armies, because they're just fundamentally different structures, right? So I think there's things like that where when you ask like, are we becoming politicians? I think there may just be a new type of role in these entities, right? New types of structures entirely, not just democracy plus, but it could be something actually. I don't know, high bandwidth democracy is something people talk about, or things like that. And then on the early side, I think with things like Crecimiento and Aleph, with things like what we're doing at Edge City, I see them almost as proto versions of what these things could become, but they're critical to bootstrapping this entire movement, because what you need to get people, honestly, Argentina is the best example of this, you need to get people in a place aligned around a key idea and a key vision, and actually like co-locating for a time in order to build connection. And so I think of these things as like accelerators of affinity, because now there was 2,000 people who were in Argentina in August who are lit up by the idea of building this thing. And many of them went to other places in the world, but they're still linked to the idea of Crecimiento as a movement. And now they can actually start to become more of a digital nation of some kind. Whereas if you just have a club of people you met online and you might be linked through some kind of identity type thing, some values, some project you're working on, but you've never actually spent time together, you've never done anything together, it's going to be much, much harder to get to the level of identity integration that you'll need for something like this. So I see these pop-up cities as like an accelerator, like a bootstrap function for these things that we're trying to build.
Yeah. Juan, I see you, pioneering here, and I want to kind of challenge you with some of these parallels, right? Yes, you're mobilizing people and you've galvanized this movement, and you're saying, we don't need the politicians, we don't need military, we don't need these things, but, what happens in times of maybe crisis, right, or in times of distress or threat to these communities, whether cyber...
I'm not saying that at all.
Huh?
I never said we don't need government or militaries or politicians, so I don't mean that in any way.
No. I'm just kind of flowing on the theme here of the parallels and the divide, but do you see a world in which, the community you've now created need to create allies, connections?
Yeah, absolutely. So the whole movement is, unlike other network states that are just starting digitally, Crecimiento is not that. It's building a new community within an existing nation and building a ton of bridges. So instead, it's doing it hand in hand with government. So one of the first things that we did is invite most regulators around crypto or financial infrastructure to come to Crecimiento and to come to Aleph. And we had a regulatory day with every single leader in the of the different regulating agencies on stage discussing the opportunity space for Argentina. And we had multiple visits from government, from part of the current presidential cabinet to parts of the Buenos Aires government working with us to build this. And one of the really exciting things is that, and the opportunity here is that there is that crossover moment of both a grassroots, bottom-up, organic movement with strong top-down openness and support that creates this golden opportunity in this very moment that I think is only open for the next 2 years. If it doesn't happen in the next 2 years, then the administration can potentially change, and it's given Argentina's history and the pendulum swinging, it's very possible that the next, whoever comes next, will not be open to crypto in this way. So we have this very narrow time to try and create that economic prosperity and lock in an economic zone that can give this new financial infrastructure the 20-year longevity.
Yeah, that's great. And one of the topics we discussed about earlier was building these cloud nations or network states. Where does centralization versus decentralization play in, right? Google right now, kind of almost owns the brand of cloud, right? Are they a cloud nation themselves, centralized and operate? Quinn, any thoughts on that? Timour? Don't let me stump you. That's not the point
No,
of
is
the
Google
question.
a cloud nation? I mean, I guess to some degree, people are spending a lot of time there. I think it matters a lot about like what is the point of this. Like they obviously are not trying to do that. Could they do that? Like, I guess potentially. I think that would be a little dystopian because I don't think they would do it in the ways of like the types of things that we care about as citizens of an entity in terms of, sovereignty over our data.
But their citizens care about money, right? Maybe that's what drives that community, right? Is just pure financial incentive. Like, how does decentralization almost open up different incentive mechanisms, right? We talked about identity, value, connection, these things that can also be tied into benefit, right? But maybe not purely financial. So I guess I'm trying to challenge that idea and try to introduce how decentralization can benefit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can build a nation out of just pure financial interest and profit. I think that you don't really need a nation for. You can just go to whatever existing nation exists, and you can go and make a great business there. It's much more about values and culture.
Exactly.
The values and culture give rise to a policy landscape. And the policy landscape enables certain things, right? So today we live in a whole range of nation states that grew through the last few centuries of lots of different ideas and value systems being explored, and eventually gave rise to a quite free world with lots of freedoms that we now called human rights. And those are an invention. They're not, unlike the documents that say these are inalienable things that just exist. We invented those. Those are our social technology to coordinate. And we constructed that culture and those principles to enable a range of possible opportunities and ways of relating and ways of operating. And I think today there's, in the hundreds of countries out there, lots of variability in different ranges of experience that you could have. But where the opportunity is, what's missing is that there's specific policy spaces that are just not explored and are completely inhibited by current large-scale parties. And so a group of us around the world think that in order to explore that different way of relating and that different way of organizing and that different policy space, we need to introduce some experimentation here to construct new forms of socializing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think it's interesting you bring it back to policy, right? And, we don't want to be the politicians of the new networks or the new nations, but policy and rules and to some degree even policing of people abiding by these rules. Like, these are important concepts that if someone wants to, let's say, untether themselves from a current nation or state, these will be expectations. And, Timour, we talked about this, right? Like, does your citizenship with your traditional nation exist in parallel, or is there a scenario in which you make the leap into a digital life and digital citizenship? And Are there digital boundaries and borders that you now have to have visas to access, right? I feel like to some these are foreign concepts, but in your work, in your world, these are real things to consider, right? So, where do you guys see with kind of the frameworks that you're looking to build, and how do you almost continue to inspire your citizens?
So one of the things we talk a lot about at Edge City is our theory of change is very bottoms up. It's very like evolution minded, very, essentially let's try things, or not even let's try things, let's create a space where people can try things. And so the point is like, instead of 180 experiments that are currently being run in terms of how do you structure a group of people at that scale, what if there were thousands, right? What if we had 1,000 concurrent experiments running, and what are the policies that run, these types of entities? What are the new types of institutions, et cetera? So that's I think the lens through which to look at this. Like we're in the phase where we're trying to figure out what are the right structures. It's SEZs, it's, it might be places like Bermuda that are friendly to this kind of experimentation. Like, what are the right structures that will allow for that level of experimentation over the next couple of decades?
Yeah. Quinn, any thoughts on that?
So for us, actually, we just see that, we just create the safe zone, and also create the inspiring zone for people, for builder, for leader, also to testing out different experiment to see that what is not working in the region for now, and then they cannot test in the big scale with 100 million people, but now with with the scale of 100 or 200 leaders living together in a certain amount of time, and also test out with 10,000, community members, something like that. They can see that what works and what doesn't work, and also we can see that what is the new idea that can really apply into the real world problem. And the key thing is we work from the grassroots, but we also work from the government, also see the perspective, also from the traditional government, how they also see all of that, what is the movement of this kind of pop-up city that can bring into, the current even government, and also even bringing in the economy. So for example, they have some city or some area that, they need to boost for the economy. So how we can support them? Right? How we also can inspire other builders, other founders to really build the real impact in that. So we work on both different perspective from governments, traditional, also from the new digital builders from blockchain ecosystem. And that's the key thing that we think about. Number one is impact, and second that also we really care about the core value align. That's the key thing that we really want to make it different, because as a traditional nation also we have the law. The law just say hey, this is a thing that you can't do. But coding also is the thing that hey, they writing code also kind of writing law every single day, but in a way that hey, this is the thing that we doing to that every day. So instead of that, for community, how we can bring all the builders and leaders together and create the impact and build a new future with the great impact is we need to align with the core values. That is a key thing for that also.
Yeah, and the work that you guys are doing, truly admirable. You're putting yourselves out there, and you're interacting with governments and communities in different parts of the world. And so, what I would call the call to action of this panel is, I've met all of you today, and I really appreciate learning about your stories and your perspectives. And I'd love to find ways of collaborating, knowledge sharing, building bridges, internationally, physically, digitally, however we want to do it. But I think I'd love to be able to draw more attention to your projects that from different parts of the industry, right? There's a whole institutional world. I'm the only guy in a suit here at this conference. Usually I'm not the guy in the suit. So this is, refreshing for me in a weird way. But, I think your story needs to be projected to these groups as well, so that they can provide funding support. But with that, I'll give you each of maybe a quick closing remark, just your final takeaway thoughts on where you believe the state of states are today. Quinn, start with you.
The state of states, actually, I think that we at the very early stage. we also trying to starting from some new movement, and then also want to test down with the good intention, like create the impact, and also like inspire more and more people, and also even bring like, non-crypto people also like to join this movement in our pop-up city. And I also learned a lot from both to this leader. So I want to hear also like maybe the last minute to share about that with our audience here.
A lot of people are talking about recently about like civilizational cycles, and that maybe now, after 400 years of the Westphalian nation-state system, maybe it's time for something new. I think that's potentially true, especially with everything happening, technology in general. I think that will be figured out in environments like this, and it can only be figured out in environments like this. It's not going to come from private market or government or think tanks or whatever. So if people are interested, I would say go to Argentina in December, come to the next Edge City, go to Vietnam. These conversations are happening, so it's very exciting.
Juan, take us home.
Yeah, just want to echo that. Come join us in December in Argentina, and come bring whatever it is that you're doing and building and share it with the broader community, and help us upgrade both the current economic infrastructure of places like Argentina, and then export that back to wherever you're from. So come join us and let's go.
Thank you very much. Big round of applause to your panelists.